Hello everyone. This is the fourth part of the story Game of Thrones, the Prideful one. Chapter 22. After my little incident with Theon, I took some time to cool off, and roughly a couple of days after, I decided it was time to go back to Bear Island. Lord Stark so far had decided to keep the betrothal and unite our families even more. Theon on the other had died during that time, blood loss, severe trauma and infection. But nobody can blame me. Robb was angry, but understood things like that can happen, in duels or the likes, but he was also angry at Theon for insulting his sister. My situation with Sansa was weird now. Sansa was quite infatuated with me now, becoming a bit too clingy, but I suppose it is because she thinks I started a war to protect her, which was not the case. I did it because it had to be done. She was just a good excuse to do so, without getting any repercussions. This of course is not all bad. It was my end goal, and it will make my life easier once we marry. But it was too soon perhaps. Nonetheless, it was time to continue with my business ideas and evolve the North. With the hydroponic sheds being built in the North, I had to focus on finding who could provide silkworms. With them I would be able to create one of the most expensive items in the world, but for that to happen I would have to create some sort of warm environment for them. The harsh cold of winter would kill my poor silkworms in a matter of seconds. But now that I had Pike, I could expand my business there. After all, the climate there was warmer and more welcoming to this type of business. While by southern standards it was still cold, it was considerably less than any place in the north. "Welcome home, my lord," Meech said with a warm gruff. Her eyes showed she was uncomfortable, not with me, but with our two visitors. Tywin and Tyrion Lannister. I had known for quite some time the lions were in my cave, and I knew why, and frankly it was getting boring. "Take me to them," I sighed. As I turned my gaze to Sansa, "I'm going to take care of some businesses." "Take care," Sansa smiled. "Follow me," Meech said without even questioning how I knew the lions were in my house. The room was dimly illuminated by candles, and had 3 chairs and a table. In one was sitting Tyrion drinking wine, while his father read a book. "Lord Mormont, what a pleasant surprise," Tywin said, not even looking up from his book. "Likewise Lord Lannister. To what do I owe this unexpected surprise?" I inquired, taking the last empty chair, as I dismissed Meech out of the room. "Please, let's not. I am well aware you knew I was here," Tywin said, putting his book on the table. "Your spy network is on par with the spider. The difference is that unlike the spider, you can't be spied on." This was refreshing. I didn't expect him to be so straightforward. "So you sent your son to do that?" "I think there are other ways to get rid of him," I chuckled. "I agree with Lord Mormont," Tyrion chuckled back. "You know why we are here, so let's talk about that." Tywin ignored us. "Fine, my answer is no. I can also recite that in Low Valyrian it was already bad enough that I had to marry a teen soon. I was not going to downgrade this age situation to a kid. The Starks were trustworthy. If I married a Lannister I would wake up one day with a knife on my back, or simply I would not wake up. We can offer you so much more than the Starks," Tywin offered, and his tone said I will give you the North. Of course, he didn't voice this out, but he implied it. Tywin, while a cruel ruthless, never went back on a deal. He would ensure I had the North if I took his deal, but that deal had an unspoken underline, that if I took it I would basically be kneeling to him, for Tywin doesn't have allies, but subordinates, underlings. "I know, but I most decline. I'm not interested." I had to tread carefully with him. If he considered an enemy too early into the story, things could get complicated. I gave my word, and I must uphold my honor. Tywin scoffed. "Use that sentimental crap with Lord Stark. The offer will be always available, but hear me out. You will never marry Sansa Stark." I chuckled as I stood up my chair. "That sounded like a threat, Lord Lannister." "It's a warning. I might be interested in breaking the betrothal, but I won't be the one to do it," Tywin said, staring at me. "When that unavoidable day comes, reach me out." It was pretty clear what he meant. Robert Baratheon will break this betrothal. To be honest, it had crossed my mind once or twice, but I never really considered this to be a real possibility. Robert loved Ned like a brother and would never force him to do that. But what if someone whispered to him that just like Rhaegar Targaryen, I was stealing Sansa from Joffrey? That alone would be enough to push the drunkard piece of shit to make something rash. "You plan on manipulating the deck to your favor," I glared at him. "Until then, Lord Mormont, Warden of the Iron Islands," Tywin said, leaving the room. "A piece of advice, father always gets what he wants," Tyrion said, leaving the room. "So do I. The old lion has his ways, so did I." After the Lannisters left my house, with the imminent warning of a plot starting to boil, I had to prepare. The king could break out betrothal, if it was his right as the ruler of the 7 kingdoms. I couldn't stop that without going to a war I knew I couldn't win. But he can't break a marriage. If I married Sansa, I would ensure to cut the cards Tywin had. But I couldn't marry Sansa until she had her first blood, which brought me back to square one. They can't leave me the fuck alone. Shit just continues to come. Everyone wants to force me into the game. I just saved my betrothal and now is in fucking danger again. I can't catch a break, can I? Fuck my life. With new problems in my way, I decided to let things flow. I had little control over what the king decided, but maybe I had control over what he heard. It was no secret Cersei Lannister was against the idea of me and Myrcella all the way. If I played my hand correctly, I could acquire a temporary ally to destroy the plot Tywin is boiling. But Cersei was a wild card. She was as unpredictable as they come, so I had to be sure of thinking this through. My other option was to befriend the drunkard bastard and ensure he would not be manipulated against me. Or option C, I could use Lord Stark's connection to the king. So how was the meeting? Sansa inquired, entering my solar. Well, good is not a word I would use it to describe it. I sighed while getting a cup of wine. What happened? Sansa inquired, and for a moment I pondered whether to be honest with her or not. She is to be my wife, so I should start trusting her more, and if by some reason they broke the betrothal, she needed to know why, so I decided to explain what happened. Well, you might want to sit down for this one. I sighed as I started to explain in detail the situation currently threatening our betrothal. She had to grow up sometime and understand that in this world, everyone plays the Game of Thrones whether they like it or not, and that even if she didn't want to, she was another player. Vera's point of view. A few months ago, the Queen ordered me to request a faceless man to kill Lord Mormont. Frankly, it was a tad much, but the Queen is like that. The faceless man operate in mysterious ways. The harder the target to kill, the higher the price. How they know how hard a person would be to kill is unknown, but they have their ways. When I asked for a quote, they gave me none. They simply informed said contract was no possible. It was clear they didn't want to take the contract, but why they didn't want to was unclear. Their words were even more mysterious. A man cannot kill that man. A life that has been blessed by the stranger is hard to take away, the faceless man said, leaving with me a new enigma. If a group of assassins that considered any life to be expendable considered him to be, as they called, blessed by their god, something was going on. Lord Mormont was already an unexpected mystery for me, and now things continued to make him more and more enigmatic. The Queen will not be happy with the price. I sighed as I walked down the hallway to meet her. If there was one thing I hated about this was not knowing, and I didn't know a thing about him. Chapter 23. It's been a month since I explained Sansa the situation we were in. She understood with simplicity of what was going on, but reacted as one would expect of a child, panicking. But like me, she shared the idea that I should contact the king. But considering Lady Stark wanted to end our betrothal, this was quite a delicate situation, so I decided to send a raven to deliver the message. Telling Lord Stark about the plots the lions were cooking, while I focused on other important matters, getting my silkworms. Apparently there was one merchant in Essos that sold the little bastards, and he happened to be the one that had something I wanted. 3 dragon eggs. Magister Illyrio, not only he had a contact with someone that distributed silkworms for silk farms, but also had 3 dragon eggs at his disposal, and he didn't know about their real value. If I managed to buy those little eggs, I would ensure that Daenerys never became a threat, to me at least. But those weren't the only dragon's eggs in the world. In total there were 5 eggs in this world, according to the books at least. One would be found or will be found by Euron Greyjoy, who will proceed to be an idiot and throw it into the sea, and the last one location is unknown. Some say is in Dragonstone, others say in Beyond the Wall, but no one can say for sure. With this in mind, I ordered one of my krakens, 2 ravens, and many other fish to find Euron and keep an eye on him. Should he find the dragon egg, I would take it from him and kill the last Greyjoy. If I managed to collect all the dragon eggs, I would acquire 5 dragons, 5 mythical flying fire-breathing beasts. And I would become nearly unstoppable. I heard you are leaving, to Essos, Sansa said, entering my solar. It has been a month since we got back to Bear Island, and she was clearly not happy with me leaving so soon, but things had to be done, and I needed her in Winterfell to advocate against the Lannisters' plans. I'll be back. Besides, you get to be with your family for a bit. I know you miss Jane. I smiled as I whispered with a smirk, and Arya. Fine, But just so you know, Mother will try to persuade me to break our betrothal, Sansa pouted. That's why you will talk with your father, only he can convince the king. As of now he hasn't break anything. I knew Sansa would talk with her father, and that Lord Stark knew thanks to my messenger what the Lannisters were plotting, and the wolves hated the lions. So with all this information he would at the very least show resistance to any idea about breaking my betrothal. I know. I have to be the one on our side. Now that Mother is against us, Sansa sighed, grabbing my hand softly. Yes, you have, until we marry, I nodded, reciprocating her gesture. Be safe, I'll be back in a couple months, after I ensure some trading routes with Essos. And I'll be waiting, Sansa smiled. With Sansa going to stay with her family for a bit, and with me going over to Essos, things were starting to align in my favor. Everyone kept pushing into the game, one way or another they wanted me to play, so perhaps I had to play, so that I could destroy the game once and for all. I wasn't entirely sure, but one thing was sure, if I didn't play, they would keep poking me, testing my limit until I snapped. But to play the game I needed more than what I had, so I was determined to buy the dragon eggs the Magister had, and by the information I had, those 3 babies were quite expensive. But I would pay their hatched weight in gold if I had 2-3 dragons would highly increase my possibilities of winning. Sir, the ship is ready, one of the Ironborn said, respect and some light adoration in his eyes. No one would believe they wanted to kill me a couple of months ago. Then let's go, I ordered, getting inside the ship. My trip to Essos was, as I expected to be, boring and incredibly long. It would take a couple more days to arrive. Part of me was excited to see this new unknown land, but another part of me was stressed. The possibilities of finding my father and the bitch he married to were big. But I didn't have time to cling into the past. Without him being an idiot letting his dick control him, I wouldn't be here. I needed control to have success, and by no means the idiot of a father I was given in this life had the brain nor vision to understand that. We should be there in 5 days, my lord, the captain informed me. Good, I nodded, letting him know I wanted to be alone. But other thoughts crowded my mind. What if Sansa didn't succeed and Tywin managed to whisper the right words to the king? I had no political power to stop that. If the king said so, I was destined to lose her. Perhaps this was the way of the gods to show me I should be king. Only then, I would have the power to break this wretched wheel of plots and power. Ronard Mormont, the first of his name, I chuckled as I served a cup of wine. The things these political sharks push me to do. Perhaps this was the only way. Why aim for lordship when you can aim for kingship? Well, I hope you are happy, Tywin, because I'm in. Let the game begin. Cersei Lannister point of view. Father wanted to break the betrothal between Ronard and Sansa, saying we needed to strengthen our bonds with the North. And had succeeded in manipulating the idiot I have for a husband. All it took was a couple of words to revive his emotions to what happened with Lyanna, and Robert started to consider breaking the betrothal. I don't know how, but he convinced Joffrey of supporting the charade, probably appealing to his sadistic side. Joffrey is into this just because it will bring sorrow to others. Robert has yet to make a decision, but one way or another the old lion gets his way. Robert Baratheon point of view. Tywin came to visit. That old lion is nothing but trouble, but brought something to my attention that it was worth noticing. Tywin said that Sansa should be betrothed to Joffrey. At first I didn't mind, but Joffrey all of a sudden was infatuated with her. Welcome, Lord Mormont, Illyrio said warmly. He didn't seem to have any hostility against me. Then again, he was a businessman, and it was a requirement to hide your emotions while making businesses. A pleasure to be here, Magister Illyrio. I smiled, offering my hand for a handshake, which he took reluctantly. So what brings you all the way here to Essos? Illyrio inquired as we walked through his garden. I want to make some trade routes, and by some things I was told only you can provide, I admitted. I see, Illyrio hummed. I'm glad I can be of assistance, and by the way, if you don't mind, can I ask you a few questions? Sure, be my guest, I nodded, intrigued to what he wanted to know. How is Westeros? All I get is outdated information, Illyrio chuckled. Well, that is one complicated question with an even complicated answer, I chuckled. I knew what he was doing. He wanted to see where my alliances align with. Well, for starters, the Ironborn are no longer raiding or raping. Did the god themselves descend? Illyrio inquired. I knew he knew about it. He is friends with the spider. He has to be at least well informed. In a way, I sighed. I was tired of their ways, so I took control over them. So you are the new warden of the Iron Islands, Illyrio said in a matter-of-fact way. Yes, I nodded. Very well, so what did you want to buy from me? Illyrio inquired, seemingly done with the questions for now. I want silkworms, as many as you can provide, and a collectible item you have. It was the moment of truth. Will you sell me the eggs or deny their existence? What item, may I ask? Illyrio inquired curiously. 3 dragon eggs, I informed him. I want to buy them from you. For a moment Illyrio was quiet and didn't say a word, and I expected the worst, but after a minute he said, Sure, I will be sad to part with them, but the gold will soothe that pain. They are quite expensive, you know. Gold is not a problem, I smiled. I had succeeded at least in one of my endeavors so far. Just what I like to hear, Illyrio laughed, making his belly and man tits bounce in a disturbing manner. The silkworms will take a couple of months. They are brought from far away. You are welcome to stay with me during that time. I smiled. That sounds lovely. I just have to let my men know we'll be here for a while then. You came without guards to my castle. While the trust is appreciated, Essos is not safe. I'll send some Unsullied with you, Illyrio said. Little did he know, unless a battalion came for me, I was good. Thanks once again, I smiled, as I took off back to my ship with a dozen Unsullied guards protecting me. Vera's point of view. I had contacted Illyrio beforehand, when I found out the young lord of the Iron Islands and the Bear Island was on his way to meet him. If we played our cards well, we could gain a powerful ally to the realm. All my old friend had to do was ensure he stayed for a bit. The king, Robert Baratheon, was never a good man in keeping relationships. Dorne already hates him, and now that he is in process to break the betrothal between the young lord and Sansa, and he will also make an enemy of the Iron Islands. But like they said, the enemy of my enemy is my ally. This opened a new realm of possibilities. The young bear was smart, capable, and a dangerous foe, but if we moved the tides to our favor, his tides to our favor, and presented him with an option once his betrothal ended abruptly, we would gain his support to put the Targaryen dynasty back in the throne. It was certainly better to marry the princess to someone in the realm. Her brother had other ideas. But I didn't know how he would react. He was in the end a wild card. I'll be leaving to Essos for some business. Tell the king and queen, I told Pycelle. For what? Pycelle inquired. To renegotiate the price of a life like the queen asked me to. Lies, lies, lies. Lies make the world run and keep castles together. How I dream of a world without lies. Chapter 25. This place really makes me forget all the shit I have to deal with back home, I chuckled, seeing the view through my balcony. The room I was given was quite luxurious, nothing to what I was accustomed to, making me feel like in a 5-star hotel. From the balcony I could see my ship from afar. Everything was quite comfortable. But all good things have to come to an end. Sometime later, after my arrival at Pentos, one of my raven arrived with dire but no unexpected news. Jon Arryn had died like he did in the original series, and the king wanted to break my betrothal and get Ned to be his hand. Tywin managed to do what he wanted for the last time. Ned of course could still say no, but my chances were low. Caw-caw. What do we do? Caw-caw-caw, Raven Rangers. The Raven started to sing the new theme song for his squad. Nothing. Any news about Euron? I inquired, chuckling at my feathered friend. Nothing so far, Caw, but we know the spider is coming to Essos. The Raven shook his head in shame. It's okay, I have these for now. I smiled, showing him the dragon eggs, who cost me a big, and I mean big chunk of money. Caw, do you want me to sit on them and brood them? The Raven said, approaching the massive eggs and sitting on them, trying to give them enough warmth to hatch them. No, but you can try, I chuckled. Brothers, we have to brood these eggs. The Raven shouted, and immediately after 12 Raven entered and sat on the eggs. We will be good parents, Caw. I caw. We'll teach them the pleasure of corn. I will teach them the pleasure of killing. Caw. They will be super ravens, my maternal instincts feel it, Caw. I laughed for a good time as I saw the ravens shifting positions to make sure every inch of the eggs was covered in feathers and warmth. After a few minutes, all I could see was a ball of feathers that was composed of ravens. Pushing the laugh out, I started to focus. After all, it was time to play the game. They managed to push me to the point I actually joined this disgusting game. If King Robert did in the end break my betrothal, I would answer accordingly, in war. If I didn't do anything after what he was about to do, I would be seen by my men as a coward, and I would lose their respect. and I couldn't let that happen. War was looming above my head, and was one of the main reasons I traveled all the way to Essos. While I was safe in my lands, because none of the 7 kingdoms had a chance to invade me, I didn't have the firepower to win the war. But here in Essos there were many possibilities, many things I could acquire for the upcoming war. The Unsullied, the Dothrakis, the Second Sons. If push comes to shove, I would have many options to increase my military power and take control over Essos and the 7 kingdoms. "How is your day, Lord Mormont?" Illyrio inquired as he entered the room he gave me. "Fine so far, worried about stuff in my home, nothing to concern you about. It has been almost 2 weeks since I got to Essos, and I had yet to see the Targaryens." "I see." Illyrio trailed off, seeing my ravens, all staring at him. "My pets, don't pay much attention to them," I laughed. "Aren't they adorable?" "I suppose," Illyrio said, still eyeing my ravens. "So any particular reason you wanted to see me, Magister?" I inquired, eyeing the man carefully. "I wanted to let you know, my contact for the silkworms will be arriving in 3 weeks, Illyrio smiled. "He thinks that I'm not aware of this, but I'll let him play his game until the spider arrives. Thanks for letting me know." Daenerys Targaryen point of view. "It's been 2 weeks since Lord Mormont arrived. Magister Illyrio is making sure we don't meet him, because as of now he is unsure where his alliances align. All we know about him is that he was about the same age as me, and that he started as a small lord that ended up taking control of the Iron Islands, becoming the warden of them. We were in different areas of the castle to avoid seeing each other. My brother didn't understand why we were hiding from him. He said that any lord should kneel before him, for he was the dragon." "You think you will help us?" I asked Viserys. "Magister Illyrio is making sure he is trustworthy," Viserys answered, not even looking at me, "but it doesn't matter, soon he will kneel to the dragon. Nobody should wake the dragon, it's something Viserys has burned into my soul." Ned Stark point of view. A lot of things were happening in my lands at the same time, bad omens for the north. Lord Mormont had gone to Essos, dire wolves that were thought to be extinct, appearing soon after. Jon Arryn, a man that seemed he would outlive us, died. King Robert was coming. Things would end bad, I could feel it. Jon Arryn is dead, and the king is coming, I sighed. "You know what he wants, Ned. You can always say no," Cat begged. "I can't. I couldn't let my old friend be alone in the south. He needed someone to rely on." "Yes, you can. You can say no." Cat shouted. "You fought a war for him. You know as well as I do Starks don't do well in the south." I sighed. "But if not that you can't, is that you won't," Cat said, angry. Back to Ronald Mormont point of view. I decided that while I waited for the spider, I would get to know the city and see how my men were doing, leaving my ravens brooding the eggs affectionately, which was weird. They were all mom mode now. The city was full of life, to say the least, with people buying and selling stuff, and it generally gave a vibe that seemed to match the Middle Eastern in my world. But I wasn't out just exploring, I was gathering information. With a war looming above my head, I had to explore new possibilities. Like, how much did the Unsullied cost? How much did the Second Sons cost? What were the Dothraki believed, and how to exploit them? For the first one, the Unsullied costed a fucking ton of gold. The Second Sons were almost as expensive as they were. Now the Dothraki were an easy target if I wanted to increase my army exponentially in number. It was quite simple. They believed in some kind of horse god, and I happened to be able to control animals. All I had to do was make their horses kneel, and they would take it as an omen that I was the great stallion that would ride the world or something. But like the Ironborn, their culture was disgusting and had to be molded. Without even noticing, as I pondered with the many scenarios where this could go, I arrived at the coast, where my ships were. "My lord, how is everything?" one of my men asked, as I approached. "The same as always," I sighed. "Had you guys had any troubles with the locals?" "Nay, we are keeping ourselves inside the ship. We take turns to go out in." The man started to get nervous, which by his body language implied they were going for whores but were afraid to tell me. "I don't care if you fuck all the whores in Pentos, as long as they willingly accept," I chuckled. The man started to laugh out loud. "Well, they aren't complaining, they are sucking the gold out of our dicks." I laughed, seeing how visibly relaxed he got, knowing I didn't see whoring as something bad. "Not necessarily. I don't see you complaining about the gold you are losing." "Nay, is a good way to lose gold." The man laughed even harder. "I suppose. I chuckled as I took a sit close to him. Don't bring me problems with the locals. Their compliance is necessary, for now. I will be more careful. I'll tell the man they can't get too drunk. The man nodded. Make sure you do that, I nodded. Chapter 26. Sansa Stark Point of View. It has been almost a month and a half since Ronard left to Pentos. I missed him every day, but now I had a new friend to keep me busy. Lady. Father and my brothers had found some dire wolves while they left for an execution. Lady was the best. I always wanted a dog, but this is certainly better. I wonder what Ronard is doing. He is going to miss the king and the royal family coming. I miss him a lot. Come on, Lady, we have to get ready. I petted Lady, who stretched a bit and proceeded to follow me. Ronard Mormont Point of View. Today, like any other day, I was walking through Illyrio's garden, wondering how things will end up playing. It has been a month since Illyrio told me that his contact, aka the spider, would arrive in a fortnight, and he still hadn't, and by now the novelty of being in Pentos had worn out. The last raven I sent to check the estimated arrival time told me that the sea was wild at this moment and it would take some time for the spider to arrive. The spider has arrived. A raven informed me, slowly descending into my shoulder. Finally, the Master of Whispers arrived. Let's go and get ready to meet him, I smiled. Things were calm for the moment. The king had yet to break my betrothal, that would in turn open a metaphorical box of Pandora. Taking a deep breath, I cleared my thought as I walked to my room, to get a bath and get ready. The spider was already in Pentos. How are the eggs, by the way? I asked the raven on my shoulder. Caw. Nothing so far. We are increasing the amount of brooding, the raven answered. All right, keep me posted, I chuckled. Vera's Point of View. It took a bit more than I expected to arrive. The sea was particularly on my side this trip, but I managed to get to Pentos in one piece. Long time no see, old friend, Illyrio greeted me with a smile. It's always a pleasure, I smiled. Where's the young lord? Taking a bath, getting ready for something, Illyrio answered. Impressive, but hardly unexpected. The young lord knew I was coming. I wonder if he knows the Targaryen are here? He never stops to surprise me. He knows I am here. How could he know? Illyrio inquired with puzzlement. The young lord is full of surprises. One of them is how well informed he is, and how little informed we are about him. Information just goes one way with him, I admitted. He was the hardest person in the world to spy on. Every house knew this, for their spies would suddenly appear dead or worse. I see, if you said so, it's hard not to believe it, Illyrio sighed. Let him know we are waiting for him. It was time to see if we could move the tides of the young bear to our favor and ensure the safety of the realm. I will, Illyrio nodded. Back to Ronard Point of View. I was ready to personally meet the spider. While I originally expected to meet him on King's Landing, this was also acceptable. The game pushed me out of the path I was walking. It sucked into this wretched world. I was still with one foot on my old path and one in the new one. If they broke my betrothal, I would be officially and irrevocably in the game, but at this point my betrothal was just an excuse. I knew my breaking point was near, whether they broke my engagement or not. I knew I would join the game one way or another, because I was tired of it. Tywin just pushed me into this path earlier than it was supposed to happen on its own. My contact is here. Illyrio entered my room with a smile, but something was different. He was looking at me differently. He knew I knew. Neat. So the spider is here. Well, time to crawl into his web, I chuckled, getting a mild look of surprise from Illyrio. Follow me, Illyrio finally managed to say, walking out of my room, with me following him close behind. And there he was, sitting in the shadows, the spider, waiting for me. To what do I owe the pleasure? I inquired, sitting on a chair in front of him. Illyrio also sat down on the opposite end. Not many would consider meeting me a pleasure, but I suppose you are the exception for many things, Varys said, serving himself and me a cup of wine. I grabbed the cup and took a sip, and smiled. So how in the realm? Good, for now, Varys sighed. Is my betrothal still active? Being honest with the spider was possibly the best. He was already cryptic enough. You can consider it broken. Varys took a deep breath. Lord Tywin wants you, and with Sansa in the south and your alliance to the north, he would get you even if you didn't marry Myrcella. I chuckled, anger building within my very core. But the old lion, while terrifying, lacks something, Varys said with a soft smile. He lacks vision. He thinks himself above anyone, including the king. He thinks like the rest you will fall into line and do as he pleases, but you won't, am I right? I stared at Varys with an excruciating look before bursting into laughs. For not being able to spy on me, you sure know me. I used to gather information before having spies. While certainly harder, I know some bits about you, not much but enough to get a general idea of who you are, Varys admitted. Impressive nonetheless, I nodded. As my tone grew colder and my eyes became darker, you do realize, while I don't love Sansa, I have to respond to this insult, right? I do. I just thought I could use this for the betterment of the realm, Varys nodded. You want to use me to put the Targaryens on the throne, the same ones in this castle, I chuckled darkly, making Illyrio choke on his wine. Varys looked impressed for a short amount of time before he sighed and nodded. I do. You must know the next in line to the throne is even worse than our current king. And as we have seen during the last few months, that threshold is vast, I chuckled. It is, Varys chuckled. I suppose this is the part where you propose me a deal, I said, cutting to the grain. I do, Varys nodded. You will be without betrothal soon. How about we make a new one? You want me to marry Princess Daenerys Targaryen? I chuckled, already expecting this development. I do, Varys nodded. Daenerys wasn't a bad match, but if the spider thought I would kneel to Viserys, he had another thing coming. Daenerys Targaryen point of view. Viserys has started talking with Magister Illyrio about my future possible betrothals, to ensure him an army. I didn't want to marry anyone in Essos. I wanted to go home, but Viserys didn't care. He said he would let a Dothraki horde fuck, including their horses, if they gave him an army. Gods please help me. Back to Ronald Mormont point of view. I told Varys I couldn't just accept the betrothal while I still had one with Sansa, but if we thought the betrothal broke, I would accept under certain conditions. He would have to ensure safe return for Sansa and Arya to the north, if he provided that I would join his crusade to put a Targaryen on the throne. While I didn't love Sansa, I came to care for her. She was but an innocent girl too young that was about to learn the harsh truth of reality. She didn't deserve all the suffering coming her way, and if it was in my power I would stop it. Though I never said what Targaryen I would put on the throne, I didn't pretend to put Viserys on it, and besides, if Daenerys was to marry me, she would be a queen, my queen. It's not my fault Varys left so many blanks on his deal, but perhaps the spider knew about them and didn't care. He seemed crafty enough. After our mutual agreement, where he would ensure the Stark sisters went back to the north when all the future shit of the game exploded, and in return I would marry Daenerys and help him save the realm, he left, saying that his presence was needed in the realm, not without telling me I would meet the Targaryen siblings soon. Time to plan, I sighed in my room, as I heard my ravens talking about how good they were brooding. This marks the end of part 4 of the story Game of Thrones, the Prideful one. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.